On June 17th, 2020, the world was introduced to Amphibia. Created by Matt Riley, it stars a Thai American girl named Am Boon Choi who, alongside her friends Sasha Waybright and Marcy Wu, get transported to another dimension called Amphibia. This dimension is inhabited by anthropomorphic amphibians and threatening creatures where the girls are then separated from each other and must find each other and return home. The series ran for 3 seasons from June 17th, 2020 all the way to the series finale on May 15th, 2022. The series was an enormous success, spanning a fandom that exists well after the series concluded, especially after the release of a book titled Marcy's Journal, detailing the events of the series from the perspective of Marcy Wu. As a result of the series' massive fandom, some prominent figures came and went. Some went on to be recognised by the show's crew, others fell into the pit of controversy. Today, however, we'll be discussing a user that causes fans to shudder at the mere mention of him. A user that creates content that ranges from questionable to just downright creepy. A user that has become the closest a fandom ever had to a lolcow. Today, we will be discussing AdmiralDT8. Now before we get started, I must put some disclaimers. Firstly, don't go ahead and harass Daryl, as this does not make anything better for anyone. Just block him and move on with your life. Secondly, this is meant to be as unbiased and non-emotionally clouded as possible. I'm going to be looking through this with as much of an objective lens as possible, though I will be giving off some of my own thoughts here and there with some snark, so keep that in mind before liking or disliking this video. And thirdly, I do not condone shipping yourself with a minor, real or not, as an adult. Other than that, let's get cracking. AdmiralDT8, better known as simply Daryl, is a 27-year-old artist and animator in the Disney TV animation community, known for his artwork, animations, and songs. A college graduate with a degree in animation, the most popular of his songs is a fan-made takeover theme song featuring his original Amphibia fan character, AdmiralDT8. The video, despite having boasted well over 150,000 views before being taken down for reasons that I will explain later, had an unfavourable like to dislike ratio, having 2.4 thousand dislikes as opposed to 2.1 thousand likes. A lot of his videos have received similar backlash, having 9 times the amount of dislike as compared to likes. The videos themselves range in quality, with them either being amateurish at best or janky at worst, or, in the case of his animations, really choppy and sometimes having characters being lazily dragged across the scene. The reason for the backlash cannot be found in the YouTube videos alone, as instead, one would have to traverse the absolute cesspit known as DeviantArt. DeviantArt. At first glance, his gallery seems inoffensive, with pieces being made based off stuff such as the Owl House, Amphibia, the Loud House, Hell of a Boss, and Has Been Hotel. However, if one were to scroll deeper through his gallery, they may uncover things that range from questionable, such as Daryl holding hands with Anne, to just straight up creepy, such as Daryl and Anne kissing on the lips. Whilst they may not seem all that bad at first glance, considering that there is nothing inherently wrong with shipping an OC with a canon character, keep in mind that Daryl is meant to, or at least implied to be, a self-insert such representation of AdmiralDT8 himself. For context, Anne is 13 years old, whilst AdmiralDT8 is 27 as of writing this. However, many of the edits do actually fit the Amphibia art style pretty well. So well to the point where some actually seem like they came straight out of a real Amphibia episode. Daryl's character design isn't that bad either. I mean, trust me, I've seen far worse, and it's not that awful. Whilst the design of his Salamander OCs, Tint and Chronax leave something left to be desired. The spots on Tint would be really hard to animate had he been a real character. The contents of the screenshot edits are though... yeah, let's talk about them. How to make an Amphibia screenshot edit, Daryl style. Step 1. Take a screenshot for an episode. Step 2. Draw/paste his characters onto a scene, often reusing a pose or two. And the third step is completely optional, but for added effect, change the expression if need be to fit the scene. The screenshot edits are also notable for how out of place Daryl and his OCs look in several of these edits. This is often due to the screenshots themselves having been ripped from a low quality version of the episodes in his earlier edits. He did correct this though, or at least attempted to in his later edits, as the screenshots themselves are in much higher quality, so good on ya, Daryl. You actually paid attention to some of the feedback you received. Another part of the edits that really stick out is the fact that Daryl reuses poses constantly. Sometimes it's understandable, other times like, come on man, that's just straight up fucking laziness. Like for example, this pose of tint is reused so much that I'd say take a shot every single time you see this pose being reused. And this static pose of Daryl is, I don't know, it's just janky in my opinion. Another thing he does is trace. A lot. In his speed paint titled Dungeon Buddies, he is seen straight up tracing Marcy's render from the Amphibia wiki, making Marcy's pose look really stiff compared to Daryl looking really dynamic. If he doesn't trace parts of, or an entire pose, he just steals the renders right off the wiki with some minor edits. The renders themselves are made by a user called RealJ Virginia, who has previously requested that Daryl stop stealing and tracing his renders that he drew. Daryl responded by the notable and mature act of blocking him on Twitter. Yeah, great going, dude. Some of the screenshot edits also destroy any kind of significance a scene had. One infamous example is an edit of the scene from the Season 2 finale True Colors, in which Marcy is stabbed by King Andreas. Daryl thought it would be a brilliant idea to have his character, Kronax, be killed this way by being right behind Marcy and collapsing at the same time as her. Look, I don't even need to explain as to how wrong this looks. You dear viewer may be asking, but Tori, why would he make these in the first place? These screenshot edits alongside his original Amphibia OC scenes aren't mostly meant to be standalone pieces, but rather image annexes to his Amphibia fanfiction Loyalty Among Worlds. Loyalty Among Worlds is a retelling of Amphibia starring his OCs with Daryl as part of the Calamity Trio, making it the Calamity Quartet, including a 4th gem for Daryl. The fanfiction is an entire subject worthy its own video, but to keep it short, many parts of the plot don't make much sense. For example, Daryl starts off as being in a relationship with Sasha before breaking up with her at the end of Season 1 for some reason, and Daryl being way too excited for school. Like, who the fuck is that excited for school, especially a 13-year-old? The fanfiction will be covered in the next part of the series, and trust me, you don't want to miss that. But for now, our last talking point will be the drama surrounding this dude. Considering everything that I've mentioned in this video, it is no surprise that Daryl is as controversial as he is. One mention of his name and the entire chat will either be making fun of him or being asked not to mention him as if though he's Lord Voldemort. His artwork and edits have been subject to mass amounts of ridicule, so much so that people even make edits of his artwork either to make the trio want him 6 feet under and gone, or replacing him with either Sasha or Marcy. Some fellas even go as far as to call him the Sonichu/Chris-chan of the Amphibia fandom, which is a tad far if you ask me, as what Daryl does is nothing compared to the shit Chris has done over his life. And whilst I did make some memes mocking his artwork, they were simply just for the shits and giggles and not really meant to offend anyone in any way. What probably prompted this backlash tenfold, even more so than the initial Annex Daryl artwork made by him and his friends, is a series of artwork made in Christmas 2020 based off the Nativity. These drawings featured a retelling of the Nativity done through various cartoon characters from various shows, such as Ed, Edd and Eddy, Fish Hooks, The Owl House, The Loud House, Daddy Phantom, Robot Boy, and of course, Amphibia. What ultimately got the fandom via these drawings is that Mary and Joseph were represented by Anne, Boon Choi, and Daryl respectively. You can probably see where this is going. Then Daryl thought it would be a brilliant idea to draw Anne giving birth to Jesus Christ, with Christ being represented by f***ing proof of fairly odd parents of all things, with Daryl as the motherfucking father. Like Daryl, if you're watching this then I'm sorry, but how can you not see how disturbing this would have appeared to the fanbase? Like, dude, come on. Anne being pregnant just kinda reeks of pro-ship, don't you think? As controversial as Daryl, his reputation gave rise to rumours and serious accusations. Trigger warning, this will discuss allegations of grooming, so skip to this timestamp if that kind of stuff makes you squeamish. Throughout 2021, there have been rumours of Daryl having groomed minors, and even requesting one to make an Anne Boonchai impression to, quote, let it all out. The meaning of this phrase will most likely get me demonetised. But with such allegations being spread around, surely there must be chat logs, recordings, screenshots, or anything of such serious actions, right?
No, you silly livers! No!
What? You're meaning to tell me that you're accusing someone of a crime just because they have made at most a very creepy ship, and artwork has said gross ship, and you don't like them? His reputation has also caused other people in his circle to be confused by him. One example I can think of is when in late 2021, bootleggers stole artwork of another Amphibia OC, Frank Ramirez by Cowboy Alchemist, and placed him onto a calendar on Wish. Sometime later, Twitter user Dear Lapis bought the calendar and was unexpectedly surprised by Frank Ramirez himself. It later posted pictures of the calendar on Twitter, having mistaken Frank for Daryl, and the tweet blew up in popularity, having gained nearly 2,000 likes as of me writing this. And if you're wondering, Cowboy Alchemist is aware of the calendar's existence, and isn't too pleased about his character being stolen. As of writing, the calendar has been sold out, so it's currently unavailable. Whilst Daryl hasn't responded to the backlash directly, he is aware of it, considering he locked his recent pieces behind a paywall and having re-uploaded his videos, explaining as to why the like to dislike ratio isn't the same as it was previously. With all that being said, it's easy to see why Daryl is as hated as he is, with the Amphibia and even Owl House fandom being on edge at the sheer mention of his name, the countless memes mocking him, and the hundreds of tweets poking fun at his artwork. The Daryl X and shape featured in the screenshot edits and artwork is eyebrow raising at best, and just plain WTF at worst. His edits look really slapped on and at times off model. His animations look incredibly janky and choppy, and both rely heavily on reusing poses, renders and tracing. As I said earlier, this is part 1 in a series that will be covering his fanfiction. In the next video, we'll be covering season 1 of his Loyalty Among Worlds fanfiction, and giving my honest thoughts. And like I said, please do not go ahead and harass him, as that solves absolutely nothing. See you in the next video.